No.
Okay, great. Welcome everybody to RBCM at Outside. My name is Liz Crocker and I'm a learning program developer at the Royal BC Museum. Let me adjust my camera. I'm trying to get, oh, Ken keeps moving. There we are. So we are, we're at Dr. Ken Marr's garden here today for the program. This program is entitled, Where in the World Do Our Food Plants Come From? So that's what we're going to be looking at today. And so this is webinar format. So you can see and hear us, but we can't see and hear you. So the way that you can interact with us is through the chat window, and my colleagues Chris and Wes are monitoring the Facebook and the Zoom, and they'll forward any questions and comments on to Ken and I. And also I want to acknowledge that where Ken is in Saanich on Vancouver Island, we are on the territories of both the Lekwungen and the Wasanich speaking peoples here. So always grateful to be able to work and learn in this beautiful, beautiful place. So before we get to the program and to see Ken's garden, I just want to mention that this program, we do it every second Wednesday, and the programs are recorded. We have a playlist on YouTube. So perhaps Chris or Wes will pop that in the chat window as well, so you can see older programs and this one too, if you don't get to see all of it. And the next program that we're going to be doing, which is 2 weeks from now, is on July 22nd, and it is called Living Fossils. And it's also going to be with Dr. Ken Marr and Dr. Victoria Arbor. We're going to be looking at plants that still exist today that have been here for a very long time on Earth, even as long ago as the dinosaurs. So we're going to be doing that program coming from Beacon Hill Park, which is near the museum. So hope you can join us for that one. And what else did I want to say? I think that was about it. Now I'm going to actually flip myself around, and then I'm going to get Ken to introduce himself, and then we're going to have a little pop quiz. So get ready. And to succeed at the pop quiz, you either have to be an expert in plants or like food a lot. Okay, hang on. Here we go. Ken.
Hi Liz, hi Chris, and today we're going to talk a little bit about where your food comes from, and that word "from" has lots of different meanings. So for a botanist, the word "from" means what part of the world does the wild ancestor occur in. For ordinary shopper, it means which grocery store did you get your food from. But today we're going to talk about some of our plants that we eat on a regular basis, and we never really stop and think about the long process of their domestication from the original place where they grow wild. British Columbia is full of plants from all over the world. Our major crops, canolas from the Mediterranean, apples are from Kazakhstan, cherries are from the Caucasus, lentils are from the Middle East, wheat is from the Middle East, potatoes are from South America, and on it goes. And we have just a small snapshot of some of that diversity here in my poorly managed garden.
Thank you, Ken. So Chris, if you want to pull up the poll, and we'll get you to lead everybody through those questions.
Okay, so we have 5 questions. And question number 1 is pizza sauce. And the answers are did not use tomatoes until after 1492, includes the fruit of the tomato plant, none of the above, or both A and B. So if you're in the Zoom room, you can answer those. Oh, I'm actually going to launch the poll right now. So you can answer those questions. So number 2, yep.
No, sorry, I was just going to say they're anonymous, so no one's going to know what you responded.
Yeah. Number 2, tofu is made from curdled mare's milk, pressed cottage cheese, liquid from crushed soybeans, or coagulated potato starch. So tofu, what is it made from? Number 3, wild potatoes. Are they from Mrs. Russert's farm? Are they from Ireland? Are they from South America? Have been eaten with clay to detoxify? Or is it C and D? Number 4, the wild corn plant looks the same as the domesticated plant, is from Mexico, is from the United States, particularly Iowa, is from Africa. And the last question, quinoa. Quinoa has high amounts of some essential amino acids, can be grown commercially in Canada, is wild in South America, is closely related to lamb quarters, or all of the above. All right, so those are the 5 questions.
Okay, thanks for that, Chris. And I realized I forgot to mention that Ken Marr is the curator of botany at the museum. I don't think he said that as well. And some of you, if you saw the Earth Day program Ken and I did from the Native Plant Garden, you might remember, Ken, that was a very rainy day. Different day today, thank goodness. Okay, Ken, so
we have some answers.
Okay.
So number 1, pizza sauce. The majority of people said that it's both A and B, so did not use tomatoes until after 1492 and includes the fruit of the tomato plant. Is that true?
That's correct. And the significance of 1492 is that was the beginning of the transatlantic trade in plants. Sadly, it also resulted in bringing lots of diseases from Europe to North America. And we know the disastrous consequences that had for the North American indigenous people. A fruit is any structure that contains seeds. A fruit doesn't have to be sweet. So those are great answers, A and B.
All right.
Okay.
So number 2, tofu is made from, and the majority of people said liquid from crushed soybean.
Hey, that's great. Okay, that's correct.
And then wild potatoes, we have a little bit of, some people think it's from South America. Some people think it has been eaten with clay to detoxify. And some people think both of those answers.
Yeah, so the correct answer is both. The wild potatoes have poisonous compounds called glycoalkaloids, and clay binds to the glycoalkaloids and actually allows the starch to be absorbed in the stomach. But the poisonous compounds, which become water soluble, then are lost from your body, and it doesn't cause toxicity. There's examples of this kind of preparation all over the world, including eating acorns, which also are very bitter from alkaloids. And yes, they are domesticated originally from South America.
Now we have a hotly debated answer for the wild corn plant. Half the group says from Mexico and half says from Africa.
Okay, that's why we're doing this. Yeah, so the original wild ancestor of corn is from Mexico. It's called teosinte, and later on, Chris, you'll have a slide to show what it looks like.
And lastly, with quinoa, most people said all of the above. Some
Great.
people just identified has high amounts of essential amino acids.
Great, that's fantastic. Yeah, so the correct answer is all of the above. Just a quick note on nutrition. So our bodies need about 20 or so different amino acids to build protein. Protein is important for muscles, obviously, but protein is also the constituent of all of our enzymes, which put together, all the biochemical processes require enzymes. So you could mix carbon, hydrogen, nitrogen, and oxygen in a flask, and you could shake it forever, and you would never be able to synthesize anything. So the essential amino acids are those that our body cannot make from the diet that we eat. They have to be in the form of the amino acid as it's eaten. In other words, we can assemble amino acids from our diet, break from the metabolism of our diet. For the non-essential amino acids, we can just break down whatever we're eating and then resynthesize it into the non-essential amino acids. But a healthy diet includes all 20 amino acids, and so you have to have those essential amino acids that your body can't make in order to make protein.
Thanks for that. Some nutrition tips in there. I love it.
Absolutely.
Okay. Now, I forgot to mention too, Ken and I are social distancing. So we're going to go over to your first stop.
Yeah,
you go that way. I'm going to come around. And Ken will point out some things. And I'll get in close with the camera. Oh, I love the height of summer. It's so beautiful. Look at these colors. Okay.
Yeah, so Chris, I think you've got some slides to show. So the first plant we'll talk about is quinoa, the one we just finished the quiz on. if you're familiar with the weed called lamb's quarters, this leaf will look familiar to you. And this is an incredibly productive plant. It has tiny little seeds. It's a bit of a hassle to process. We could talk about that later if anyone's curious. It has compounds called saponins, which are defensive compounds that protect it from being eaten. So humans have had to figure out how to get around that.
Okay, I see. Yeah, Chris is just putting the slides on.
Yeah.
So now what's this first one we're looking at?
So the first one we're looking at is quinoa.
Quinoa, okay.
And that's the plant I have my hand against.
Okay, and we're gonna have to wait because he's showing the slide now.
Okay.
There we go. Okay.
You tell me when you're ready.
So which slide though? Is it?
Oh, the first slide. They're in order.
Okay.
Oh, the one where it talks about research.
Yeah.
Okay, there we
Got
go.
it.
Research is helping farmers seize quinoa fever.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So this is a crop that is probably of growing importance in Canada. It's also grown in the Tibetan Plateau. It does well in high, dry, cold habitats. And it's from South America, from the Andes, as are potatoes. Have another crop here.
So now they can't see what you're, should we stop showing the slide and do a close up of the plants
Yeah,
first?
let's do
Okay.
a close up.
Thanks, Chris.
The amaranth will be the next
Okay. Now I just want to maybe check that quinoa out again. So this is the quinoa here, right?
one. Right here.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. So there's the quinoa. And then the next one you're going to talk about here is amaranth. This
Amaranth.
one here. Okay. Look at that beautiful color.
And here are the seeds of amaranth.
Right. And then we can show the slide after. So thanks for social distancing, Ken. Okay. We're going to go in. So he's got, is that a loony to show? So it looks very much like quinoa, only teenier, smaller size grains. And then, so you cook that up? You cook that grain up?
Yeah. I eat it with my porridge. I've made flour from it. It's incredibly productive. Like one plant can produce up to 100,000 seeds.
Oh, wow.
And you can see how tiny they are. That's all you need to start.
Yeah. What is that from, like one plant or?
That's just a portion from one plant.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. All right. So would now be a good time for Chris to show that slide? Okay.
Yeah.
And so that'll be the second slide, I guess.
Yeah.
Thanks, Chris. There we go. Grain amaranth. Yes. Okay. Yeah, because I'd never heard of that before. So yeah, no, this is good. Folks can look that up.
Well.
Yeah. Okay.
So now, Chris, you can probably just leave the slides on. So the next plant I'm going to talk about is corn. And in the slide that, the first slide there, Chris, should have a huge diversity of corn in South America, although it was originally domesticated in Mexico.
Oh, there we go. Yep. Rare heritage corns.
And I've circled the kind that I'm growing, which is a black-seeded popcorn. And you don't need to look at my plants because they're pretty pathetic right now, but they'll get there by the end of the summer. So domestication of corn is one of the most fascinating aspects of plant biology, because there is nothing in nature that looks like corn. There's nothing like a big ear of corn that we're used to seeing. So it's taken a long time to figure out what wild plant gave rise to domesticated corn. So I think in the next slide, Chris, there's a picture I took at a museum in Costa Rica that shows the wild ancestor of corn, which is called teosinte.
Oh, it's got University of Michigan Museum of Anthropology. Is that
Okay,
the
let's
one?
start with that one. Yeah. Okay, so the wild ancestor of corn is on the left there. Tiny little ears. They're not even true ears, and you can see that early on it would have been really hard to imagine how that plant gave rise to the big ear of corn that we have now. So then, yeah, thank you, Liz. So the next image is from a museum in Costa Rica, which shows the branching structure of the wild plant teosinte. And I won't go into the reasons why it's so amazing that that plant became our cultivated domesticated corn. But in the following slide there, Chris, which has just headlines from a bunch of articles, you'll get a sense of how complicated it has been to understand how that wild plant called teosinte became our domesticated corn.
Many a PhD thesis on this one?
Many a PhD thesis and lots of debate.
Okay.
And it's really taken a lot of effort. Then the final image we're going to talk about is corn. Hey, Alan. Good. There goes the province's lead researcher on pine beetle. He's our neighbor.
Do you want to be on camera?
We're just doing a thing for
Royal
museum.
BC Museum. See, anything could happen out in the on an outdoor.
Talking about my garden.
Well, talking about research, I was talking to the senior geologist yesterday, and he mentioned he was talking to you. So.
He has, yeah. Small world.
Okay, we're off
Alan.
screen. There goes Alan. What is he? Pine beetle researcher.
Top pine beetle researcher in the
Thank
province.
Thank you, pine beetle researcher. See, what a wonderful
Get
neighborhood.
him on sometime.
Yes.
His
See,
dog
this is.
and our dog play together
Oh,
well.
perfect.
Our dog goes for the treats more. So some people thought that perhaps corn came from Africa. So in the next image, Chris, you'll see corn grown in Africa.
Seeds of change slide. Yeah.
And so this crop has had tremendous impact on population growth around the world. The following slide, I believe, is Nepal and China. And there's some speculation that the population in China increased when corn was introduced, probably by the Portuguese, early in the 1500s. It came in through southern China, probably via Macau, and it allowed the people to grow a crop at higher elevations than any of their indigenous crops. So it may have led to an increase in the population of China. There was a professor at UBC who wrote a paper in 1950 speculating about that. And the final image, Chris, is myself, a younger version of myself, but no less fit than I am now, in the Grand Canyon. And I'm sitting beside a little granary used by the indigenous people there, the Anasazi. And inside that little room there, I found an ear of corn. So very old corn, 6 or 7, maybe 800 years since it had been cultivated.
Oh, wow.
So right now,
Okay, thanks for the slides, Chris. I think
we're going to look at potatoes. And by the way, the Chinese word for potato is tu do, which literally translates to bean of the ground, sort of like pomme de terre.
Right.
And this particular potato here came directly to North America from Peru. Unlike most of our other potatoes that went to Europe first, and then they were brought by European settlers to North America, this one was brought by the Spanish, and they brought it to the indigenous people on the Olympic Peninsula around Lake Ozette, and perhaps also the Nootka Sound. So we call this the Ozette potato. So some of you are familiar with Nancy Turner's work. So she gave some tubers to Richard Hebda. Richard gave some to me, and I grew a bunch of them. Nancy lost hers, and so I resupplied Nancy. And it's a fabulous plant. And I'm just going to dig up one of them.
Well, thank you for sacrificing some of your potatoes for us. Well,
Sure.
hopefully they'll be ready. So this is the Ozette potato.
This is the Ozette potato.
Now, I think you sent me, did you send me something on that we could maybe share?
So I sent
I
you,
think maybe there might be a
there's a
PDF.
slide.
Oh, look at that.
So you can see it's kind of lumpy.
Yeah.
And it probably in the process of domestication, one of the important things was to smooth out those lumps. And I just harvested a couple other kinds of potatoes. This little one here is called the likely potato. It's incredibly promiscuous. It'll start sprouting in January and want to be planted. And there is a link to an article that Richard Hebda wrote. And then finally, here's a potato called Siegland. So there's 3 kinds of potatoes from my garden. I have some others as well.
So I think, yeah, Chris and Wes should have those links about those so they can share those. So I don't see those potatoes when I go to the grocery store, Ken.
You might see this one.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Okay.
You might see russets from Mrs.
Yes.
Russet's farm.
Yes.
And there's red-skinned Irish, so-called Irish potatoes, but you won't see
But not
much diversity.
The likely or the Ozette.
You will not see either of these.
Yeah.
Nope. Which, before I forget, I want to just emphasize that one of the things we all need to be really paying attention to is the importance of conserving as much crop plant diversity as possible. because especially in these changing times, there's all kinds of genes that these other cultivars have that we'll never be able to recreate on our own. So we need to preserve them, even if they're not necessarily high yielding.
And you provided a link for that as well. There's some good information on a group that's working on plant or seed biodiversity in Canada. So that's
an organization called Seeds of Diversity. It's a non-profit organization. If you become a member, you'll receive a seed directory.
Oh yeah, they're putting it up there right now. And
okay, yeah. It's not a catalog, it's a seed directory, but you can contact other people all over Canada who are growing up heritage cultivars and request small packets of seeds from them.
Because even if you don't have land, it's amazing what you can just grow in a pot. You know, and it's so satisfying.
Yeah.
Grow your own food. Okay, what do we got next?
I'm going to sneak one more in, Liz.
Yeah, yeah. Okay. I think we've got time. And then Chris will let us know if there's any questions. We will open it up to questions.
So here's another plant from the Andes. It's called Okra, O-C-A, and it has an edible tuber. I got it from my colleague Richard, who is a great colleague and passionate gardener. Unfortunately, I don't have an image of the tuber, but they're about this big, multicolors. They're kind of sour. Richard says they aren't, but
it's the tuber that you eat?
It's the tuber that you eat, and you may recognize these leaves look like shamrock. It's in the same genus, and a kind of a common weed around town is little yellow flowers. Yeah, so
but it's not. Yeah, that's pretty. Yeah. Oh, I just saw. Oh, it's Melissa. Hello, Melissa. I didn't know. Oh, what was that comment, Chris, that Melissa had? Melissa's one of our regulars that comes to the program. Yeah.
She asked, I didn't know they could grow okra here.
Oh.
Okra.
Okra. Sorry.
Yeah.
So what's the difference, Ken? I have no idea.
Different plant family. Okra, you eat the seed pod of the fruit. Basically, that's O-K-R-A. Okra, you eat the tuber.
Oh, okay. Completely different plant.
Yeah, completely different.
Okay, thanks, Melissa.
Hi, Melissa. I remember your comments on rice.
All right. What else do you have in the garden? And folks, if you have any questions, now's a great time. You can put them in the chat. I'm going to follow Ken and try not to step on anything in his garden. Okay. Here we go.
Liz, there's another question in terms of okra. So Kelly asks, cooked like a potato, ? Is the tuber from Shamrock edible too?
I wouldn't want to say about shamrock, but these are edible, and I've roasted them and boiled them. To me, they taste sour, but I want to figure out how to eat them because they're incredibly productive if you grow them right. So you kind of hill them up at the end of the season and then let the tubers form. I haven't perfected it, but my colleague Richard has got it down pretty well.
But no to eating that shamrock tuber?
I would not eat the shamrock. Nope. Here's a tomato, which we had in the quiz earlier. Tomatoes illustrate a really important phenomenon in the plant world, is that the developing fruit are invisible to predators, animals and birds that might eat it before it's ripe. And then, as we all know, ripe tomatoes are usually orange, red, sometimes black, yellow, and at that point they become attractive to birds and animals that would then disperse it. So I have about 10 different kinds of tomatoes growing here. They've kind of gotten away from me with all the rain we've had.
And you mentioned before we started the program at Tomatillo?
Tomatillo. Yeah.
Is that related?
Tomatillo is also in the potato family. Potato, tomato, pepper, eggplant, they're all in the same family. Different genus. Okay. So I pulled this up. This is the Tomatillo plant. Nice yellow flower. It's also called a husk tomato. I pulled it up because it's taking over my garden.
So there's no fruit on that one yet?
There's no fruit on it yet. No. So I think the other two plants we're going to talk about was chickpeas, which is not a true pea. And they grow very well here, actually.
Yeah, I was surprised to hear that.
Yeah.
I love chickpeas.
And I have a slide of those, Chris.
Oh, was that?
And
I sent that separately to Chris. If you've got it there, Chris.
So it's part of the PowerPoint. Yeah.
Oh, was it? Sorry.
Yeah.
Okay.
So there's on that slide of chickpeas, which are also called garbanzo beans. There's some jars of black seeds as well as the paler typical ones. So the black ones are also a kind of chickpea. I find them to have actually a richer flavor. So that's what this one is. Sadly, I don't have any other photos of it yet. It'll have purplish flowers.
He's going to show it right now. Thanks, Chris.
Sure.
And
so do you dry yours out?
Yeah.
After
it'll get about this big, and it'll produce dozens, hopefully 150, 200 little pods.
Now he's showing, sorry, Ken, he's just showing an image of those potatoes, so that's great for folks to see different.
Yeah.
So I'm just working my way through the images. There's the soybean.
Yeah.
And then the tofu.
Tofu in the Chinese market. Yep.
So here's the
soybean.
Yeah, there we go.
Okay, chickpeas were last. I got out of order. Sorry about that, Chris.
No, that's okay.
This is soybeans. And there's a photo of the close up of the flower.
Yeah, I think he's just going back to that there, and then we'll take it off the slides.
And
that's great. Thanks, Chris.
I got these seeds from a woman in Ontario. I tried them last year, a different cultivar. They did very poorly. She promised me these might do better. So I don't have a lot of space for them, but I'm going to give them a try.
And sorry, this is what? Soybean?
This is soybean.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. One of the world's most important crops as well, from China.
Originally
from China. And I think I have a picture of tofu in China.
Yep, we just showed that one at the market. Yep.
And
he's showing it again.
We show the chickpeas.
Thanks, Chris.
So you can see I have a lot of straw in my garden. Maybe we'll just finish with wheat.
Sure.
So this is wheat straw. It has an awful lot of seed in it for straw. So I guess I'm going to get a bit of a wheat harvest as well.
What is that? What you're using for straw that I'm standing on here? Oh, okay.
Yep.
And you do that just to keep your bed separate?
I do that to keep the weeds down.
Okay.
As a kind of a mulch to protect the soil from drying out, and then I just dig it into the ground at the end of the season. And
then, sorry, did you say you grew that wheat intentionally, or
no? This was in the straw.
Oh, I see.
I bought this bale of straw, and this was the seed. I have grown wheat here. It does pretty well. It grows up the Spanish Peninsula.
Okay.
So this is a Middle Eastern plant from the Fertile Crescent. So to summarize, in this tiny little space here, just as many people from Canada are immigrants, we're depending on all of these different crops, the genetic diversity that's been derived from indigenous people all over the world, cultivating and domesticating these plants, selecting for favorable traits from their wild ancestors for thousands of years. And without the indigenous people doing this initial crop domestication, no amount of genetic modification, high-tech breeding would have ever produced some of these crops that we have now.
Yeah, well, it's like anything. When you really look at it, it's amazing. It's really something. And in such a small garden, such diversity, Ken. I'm impressed. I'm just going to step back a little so we can get a sweeping view of your garden before we sign off, unless there are any pressing questions in the chats. Ken's coming out. We can... Otherwise, I think we're just about at time.
So Liz, there's one question. Are any Canadian farmers growing quinoa commercially yet?
Absolutely. Yeah, in the prairies. Yeah. And look, you can look that up on the Ag Canada link.
Okay.
Yeah. And they've been growing it since the 1950s.
Oh, really? Well, that's good to know.
And not a question, but a comment from Melissa. She just said that she used to work in rice development in West Africa and then worked at the International Potato Center in Lima, Peru. So she's a bit of an indigenous plant nerd, is what she said.
Fabulous. I'd love to meet you, Melissa.
One day in person.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, that's really interesting.
I'd like to know if Melissa worked with African rice or Asian rice.
Okay, we'll give her a sec to type that in. Okay. Well, see if Melissa's gonna
I have a question for you, Ken. Because you're the botany curator. In terms of collections, are there things in the collections that you would collect from a garden, or
Yeah.
to just document that sort of growing process in a more cultivated way?
Yeah, I have not many. We don't have many cultivated plants in the garden. We do have some types of wheat. It's not really our mandate. I would love to document it better. I think years ago I put a sample of Tomatillo in the collection from my garden. Also ground cherries. So I did put some things in the collection that I thought might escape out of gardens, just so we have a reference collection to start establishing. I would love to do an exhibit on where your food comes from, talking about these types of issues. We could talk about GMOs. We could talk about so many different topics, but we don't have a collection of domesticated food plants, basically.
Right.
But yeah, thanks for that question. Yeah, but folks are increasingly, I think, more interested where their food is coming from.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
I see. Yeah,
Melissa
go ahead.
responded, and she said African and Nerica hybrids of the two. Nerica is a new rice for Africa.
Great. Thanks, Melissa. For those of you who don't know, there is an African rice that was brought to the New World during the tragic time of the slave trade.
Okay. I did not know that. Okay, I'm going to flip it around and social distance from Ken and sign off. Thank you all for joining us today. I learned a lot, Ken. Thank you very much. And I hope you can all join us again in 2 weeks. Me and Dr. Ken Marr and Dr. Victoria Arbor in Beacon Hill Park looking at ancient plants. Okay, thank you everybody. Thanks for joining us. Stay safe out there. Bye-bye.
Thanks, Chris. Thanks, Wes.
Yes, thank you, Chris and Wes. Bye-bye, everybody.